I want you to stop for a moment. Just one moment. Before you scroll past, before you tell yourself you've heard this before you assume this is just another video about getting older, I need you to really hear what I'm about to say, because what I'm going to share with you today changed the way I understand the human body after 60, and more importantly, it changed the lives of dozens of people I have worked with over the years. I am a nutritional health educator. I have spent over 2 decades working with older adults, in clinics, in community centers, in hospital rehabilitation programs, and sometimes simply sitting at kitchen tables with families trying to understand why their loved ones were losing the ability to walk, to climb stairs, to stand up from a chair without gripping the armrest with both hands and holding their breath. I have seen fear in those moments. Real, quiet, humbling fear. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies. The kind that lives in a person's eyes when they realize their body is no longer doing what they ask it to do. And if you are watching this right now, there is a very good chance you know exactly what I am talking about. Maybe you noticed it a few months ago. Maybe it started slowly. A little more effort to get up in the morning, a slight burning in your thighs after walking just half a block, a moment of hesitation at the top of the stairs that wasn't there before. Or maybe it happened suddenly, after an illness, after a long period of being less active, after a fall that shook your confidence and made you afraid to move the way you used to. Either way, something shifted. Your legs, those powerful, reliable legs that carried you through decades of life, started to feel like they belonged to someone else. And the thing that breaks my heart the most, after all these years of this work, is not the physical weakness itself. It's what that weakness does to a person's spirit. I have sat with men who used to hike mountains and now feel embarrassed to walk to the mailbox. I have spoken with women who used to dance, who used to chase their grandchildren across the yard, who now plan their entire day around whether or not they will have to navigate a flight of stairs. The loss of strength in the legs is not just a physical problem. It is a loss of freedom. It is a loss of identity. It is the beginning of a fear that never quite goes away. The fear of falling, the fear of depending on others, the fear that this is simply how it ends. I refuse to accept that. And after everything I have learned, everything I have studied, everything I have witnessed in real human lives, I am here to tell you with absolute conviction. It does not have to end that way. Here is the truth that most people in your life, including, I am sorry to say, many well-meaning doctors, have not told you clearly enough. The weakness you feel in your legs after 60 is not simply the unavoidable consequence of aging. Yes, aging does affect the muscles. Yes, there is a natural process called sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass that begins in our 30s and accelerates after 60. But here is what the research also tells us, clearly and consistently, that process is not a death sentence. It is not unstoppable. It is not beyond your influence. And one of the most powerful tools you have to fight it is sitting in your kitchen right now. The food you eat every single day is either quietly feeding your muscle cells, reducing inflammation, supporting your circulation and nerve function, or it is doing none of those things and leaving your legs without the raw materials they need to stay strong. Most people over 60 are walking around in a state of chronic nutritional deficiency that they don't even know exists. Not because they are eating badly in an obvious way, not because they are surviving on junk food, but because the specific nutrients that aging muscles desperately need, and need in greater quantities than younger muscles, are simply not present in their diet in meaningful amounts. I want to change that today. I want to walk you through 8 foods, real, accessible, affordable foods that have been studied and documented in the scientific literature for their specific effects on muscle strength, mobility, inflammation, and recovery in older adults. I am going to explain what each one does, why it matters, and how it connects directly to the strength and stability of your legs. And I want you to understand, by the time we finish, that you are not powerless here. You are not at the mercy of a clock. You have more agency over your physical future than you have been led to believe. Let us start with eggs, because if there is one food that I wish every person over 60 would eat consistently, it is this one. Eggs are one of the most complete sources of protein available to the human body, and protein is the single most important macronutrient for muscle maintenance and repair in older adults. But it is not just about the amount of protein in eggs, it is about the quality. Eggs are extraordinarily rich in an amino acid called leucine, and leucine is what researchers call the master trigger of muscle protein synthesis. When leucine enters your bloodstream after a meal, it sends a direct signal to your muscle cells: build, repair, grow. Studies published in journals, including the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, have shown that older adults require significantly more leucine per meal than younger adults to stimulate the same level of muscle synthesis, and eggs provide that leucine in a form the body absorbs and uses with remarkable efficiency. 2 or 3 eggs in the morning is not indulgence. It is medicine. It is the construction material your leg muscles need to rebuild themselves after every night of rest, after every walk you take, after every effort you make to stay active. I remember a gentleman I worked with, I will call him Raymond, who was 71 years old and had been told by his doctor to be careful about eating eggs because of cholesterol concerns. He had been avoiding them for years. He came to me with legs so weak he could barely rise from a chair, and when I reviewed his diet, his daily protein intake was less than half of what his aging muscles needed. We worked together to reintroduce eggs, to contextualize the nuanced science around dietary cholesterol versus the far more serious risk of muscle wasting, and within 4 months, Raymond's functional strength had measurably improved. He told me he felt like he had gotten a piece of himself back. That is what food can do. Now, let us talk about fish, specifically fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel, because these are perhaps the most underrated allies for aging legs in the entire food kingdom. The reason comes down to omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA, which are long-chain polyunsaturated fats that have a profound and well-documented effect on inflammation. Here is what you need to understand about inflammation in your legs. When you are over 60, your body tends to exist in a state of low-grade chronic inflammation that operates below the level of obvious symptoms, but silently degrades muscle tissue, impairs circulation, and makes recovery from physical activity slower and harder. This is sometimes called inflammaging, the intersection of inflammation and aging, and it is one of the primary biological drivers of the muscle weakness and joint pain that people assume is simply part of getting old. Omega-3 fatty acids directly counteract this process. They reduce the production of inflammatory molecules called cytokines, they improve the sensitivity of muscle cells to protein synthesis signals, and remarkably, studies have shown they can actually increase muscle mass in older adults even without changes in exercise. A landmark study from Washington University School of Medicine demonstrated that omega-3 supplementation in older adults significantly increased muscle protein synthesis rates and improved both muscle mass and functional strength. Eating fatty fish 2 to 3 times per week gives your body a consistent supply of these compounds. If sardines feel humble or unfamiliar, I want to tell you that in many of the longest-lived populations in the world, the Mediterranean cultures, the coastal communities of Japan, sardines are consumed almost daily. They are not a compromise. They are a cornerstone. Let me move now to something that many people over 60 are not getting enough of, and the deficiency is almost invisible: magnesium, and the food group richest in magnesium, and in several other compounds that directly support leg strength, is dark leafy greens. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, arugula, collard greens. These plants are extraordinary in their relevance to muscular health, and here is why. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic processes in the human body, including virtually every step of muscle contraction and relaxation. When you are low in magnesium, and studies suggest that a significant percentage of adults over 60 are chronically low. Your muscles cramp more easily, fatigue faster, and recover more slowly. Your legs feel heavy and unreliable not because they are broken, but because they are working without a critical mineral they need to function properly. Beyond magnesium, dark leafy greens contain nitrates, natural compounds that the body converts into nitric oxide, a molecule that dilates blood vessels and dramatically improves circulation. Better circulation means better oxygen delivery to your leg muscles during activity, which means more endurance, less fatigue, and faster recovery. A study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that higher dietary nitrate intake in older adults was associated with significantly better muscle function in the lower extremities, the exact muscles responsible for walking, climbing, standing, and maintaining balance. A generous handful of spinach sautéed in olive oil, a bowl of arugula with lemon, a smoothie with kale in the morning. These are not small gestures. These are targeted interventions for your legs. Now let us talk about something most people do not immediately associate with muscle strength, and that is the banana. I know, you may be thinking, a banana? Really? But hear me out, because the potassium in bananas plays a role in leg function that is far more significant than most people realize. Potassium is the primary electrolyte responsible for controlling electrical signaling in muscle cells. Every time your leg muscles contract, every step you take, every time you rise from a chair, every time you stabilize yourself on uneven ground, that action is initiated and regulated by potassium-driven electrical impulses. When potassium levels are low, muscles become sluggish, cramping becomes frequent, and that peculiar weakness that people describe as their legs giving out underneath them becomes more likely. Bananas are also a source of vitamin B6, which supports nerve function and the production of neurotransmitters that govern muscle coordination. Eating a banana daily is simple. It costs very little, and it keeps your muscle cells operating with the electrical precision they need to serve you well. This brings me to legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, and I want to spend a meaningful amount of time here because this food group is one of the most consistently overlooked sources of muscle-supporting nutrition in older adults, particularly for those who eat less meat. Legumes provide plant-based protein that, while it requires combining with other foods to deliver a complete amino acid profile, is extraordinarily rich in the branched-chain amino acids that aging muscles need for synthesis and repair. A cup of cooked lentils provides approximately 18 grams of protein alongside iron, folate, and fiber, a nutritional package that supports both the muscles themselves and the circulatory system that delivers oxygen to them. Iron deserves specific mention here because iron deficiency anemia is surprisingly common in older adults, and one of its most prominent symptoms is a profound, disabling fatigue in the legs. When your blood cannot carry adequate oxygen because of insufficient iron, your legs are the first to suffer. They feel heavy, weak, and exhausted even after minimal effort. Legumes, particularly lentils and kidney beans, are meaningful sources of non-heme iron that, when consumed alongside a source of vitamin C, a squeeze of lemon juice on your lentil soup, for example, is absorbed with significantly greater efficiency. The Mediterranean diet, which consistently produces the best health outcomes in older populations studied worldwide, is built substantially on legumes. They are not a side dish. They are infrastructure. Let me now tell you about nuts and seeds, almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, because these small, dense foods carry a concentration of nutrients that is almost disproportionate to their size. Healthy fats, vitamin E, zinc, selenium, and protein all combine in a single handful to support what I think of as the energy architecture of the legs. Vitamin E, in particular, is a fat-soluble antioxidant that protects muscle membranes from oxidative damage, the cellular deterioration that accumulates with age and contributes to the breakdown of muscle tissue. Walnuts are among the richest plant sources of alpha-linolenic acid, an omega-3 precursor that the body can partially convert to the anti-inflammatory EPA and DHA we discussed with fish. Brazil nuts, taken in just 1 or 2 per day, provide selenium, a trace mineral that supports thyroid function, which in turn governs metabolism and the rate at which your body builds and maintains muscle mass. I work with a woman in her late 60s who began adding a small handful of mixed nuts to her afternoon routine, just almonds and walnuts, nothing complicated, and she told me 3 months later that the mid-afternoon leg fatigue she had experienced for years had nearly disappeared. Coincidence? Possibly. But when I considered her full nutritional picture and the specific micronutrient gaps those nuts were filling, I was not at all surprised. The body responds to what you give it. When you give it the right things consistently, it tells you. We cannot talk about nutrition for aging muscles without addressing dairy, milk, yogurt, and cheese, or suitable fortified alternatives for those who are lactose intolerant or prefer a plant-based approach. Calcium is the most famous reason to consume dairy, and it matters deeply for bone health, which is inseparable from leg strength. Strong muscles and strong bones are partners. But the protein content of dairy products is the reason they belong on this list, specifically for muscle recovery. Greek yogurt, in particular, delivers a combination of whey and casein proteins, fast-digesting and slow-digesting respectively, that together provide a sustained release of amino acids to muscle tissue. Studies on protein timing in older adults have shown that consuming dairy-based protein in the evening, before sleep, can meaningfully improve overnight muscle protein synthesis, essentially turning the hours you spend sleeping into hours of quiet rebuilding for your legs and lower body. Vitamin D, which is found in fortified dairy products and is also produced by sun exposure, deserves a specific note here because its deficiency is epidemic in older adults globally, and its connection to muscle weakness is direct and well established. Vitamin D receptors are present throughout muscle tissue, and when those receptors are not activated due to deficiency, muscles lose strength, reaction time slows, and the risk of falling increases substantially. If you are not regularly consuming vitamin D fortified foods and are not getting consistent sun exposure, this is one of the simplest and most impactful deficiencies to address. A glass of fortified milk or a serving of fortified yogurt each day is a meaningful step. And now I want to tell you about the 8th food, olive oil, because it is perhaps the most elegant example of how something that does not look like a medicine and does not taste like one can act like one in the most profound way. Extra virgin olive oil is the defining fat of the Mediterranean diet, and its health properties have been studied more extensively than almost any other single food in the nutrition literature. The active compound responsible for much of its power is called oleocanthal, a polyphenol that inhibits the same inflammatory enzymes targeted by ibuprofen, not metaphorically but biochemically at the same molecular pathway. Consuming extra virgin olive oil regularly reduces systemic inflammation, protects cardiovascular health, improves circulation to the extremities, and has been shown in multiple studies to have a direct protective effect on muscle mass in older adults. A study published in Clinical Nutrition followed older adults who adopted a Mediterranean dietary pattern rich in olive oil and found significant improvements in both grip strength and walking speed, 2 of the most reliable clinical markers of overall physical function in aging populations. Drizzle it on your vegetables. Use it in place of butter. Add it to your legumes. It is not a supplement you take reluctantly. It is a pleasure that happens to be extraordinarily good for the legs you are trying to protect. Now I want to step back and speak to you directly for a moment because I think it is important to name something clearly. These 8 foods, eggs, fatty fish, dark leafy greens, bananas, legumes, nuts, dairy, and olive oil, are not exotic. They are not expensive. They are not difficult to prepare or find. They are the kind of foods that grandmothers in the healthiest parts of the world have been eating for generations. long before nutrition science gave us the language to explain exactly why those traditions worked. What modern research has done is confirm what good food cultures have always known, that the body, given the right materials, has a remarkable capacity to maintain itself, to repair itself, and to resist the forces that would diminish it. You are not condemned to weakness. You are not too old to get stronger. The legs that carried you through decades of your life have not abandoned you. They are waiting. They are waiting for the leucine that tells muscle cells to rebuild. They are waiting for the omega-3 that quiets the inflammation that has been silently working against them. They are waiting for the magnesium that allows them to contract and release with the ease and precision they once had. They are waiting for the nitrates that widen the blood vessels and flood tired tissue with oxygen. They are waiting for the potassium that keeps the electrical signals sharp and the contractions sure. They are waiting for the iron that fills the blood with carrying capacity, for the antioxidants that protect the membranes from further damage, for the calcium and protein that rebuild the architecture of bone and muscle together, for the oleocanthal that dials down the inflammation at a molecular level and gives the tissue space to heal. This is not a miracle. This is biology. This is nutrition doing what nutrition was always meant to do, not as a supplement to medical care, but as the fundamental substrate on which everything else depends. I have watched people in their 70s regain the ability to walk without a cane. I have sat with women who told me they climbed a flight of stairs for the first time in 2 years and cried at the top. I have seen men who had stopped walking to their garden because the pain was too great begin tending their plants again. I have watched grandparents get up from the floor with their grandchildren and not look afraid doing it. These things happened not because of a drug or a procedure, but because the right food, taken consistently, gave the body what it needed to do, what it was already designed to do. The consistency is the part I want you to hold on to as you leave this video today. There is no single meal that will transform your legs overnight, but there is a dietary pattern, built on these 8 foods, consumed regularly and thoughtfully, that can change the trajectory of your physical life in a way that is measurable and real. Small decisions, repeated daily, compound over weeks and months into outcomes that look extraordinary from the outside but are actually just the predictable result of giving your body what it needs. You do not need to overhaul your entire kitchen. You do not need to follow a rigid plan. You need to begin, today, with the next meal you prepare, making choices that serve your legs, your independence, and your future. Add 2 eggs to your breakfast. Choose salmon over a less nutritious protein 2 or 3 times this week. Toss a handful of spinach into something you are already cooking. Keep a banana on the counter. Make a pot of lentil soup on Sunday and eat it across the week. Put a small bowl of walnuts and almonds somewhere you will see them. Spoon some Greek yogurt into your afternoon. Pour a generous drizzle of extra virgin olive oil onto everything it makes sense to pour it on. These are not sacrifices. These are gifts. Gifts you give your body. Gifts you give your future self. Gifts you give the people who love you and want you to be strong and present and independent for as many years as possible. You have been given a body that wants to be strong. You have been given a nervous system that wants to coordinate, muscles that want to contract with power and control, blood vessels that want to deliver, cells that want to rebuild. The only thing standing between you and stronger legs is the knowledge of what to feed them. And now you have that knowledge. Start today. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not after you finish what is in the refrigerator. Today. Because every day you wait is a day your muscles do not get the leucine, the omega-3, the magnesium, the nitrates they need. And every day you act is a day you are voting for a version of yourself that climbs stairs without fear, walks to the corner store with confidence, plays with your grandchildren on the floor and gets up without help, and moves through the world with the ease and dignity that every human being deserves at every age. I have spent 20 years in this work because I believe, with everything I have, that the quality of later life is not fixed at birth or sealed by a diagnosis. It is built, one meal at a time, one informed decision at a time, one act of self-care at a time. And it can be built at 60, at 65, at 70, at 75, and beyond. The science supports this. The stories of real people support this. And if you let it, your own body will support this, starting from the very next thing you eat. If this content moved you, if something I said today landed in a way that makes you want to do something differently, I have one simple ask. Subscribe to this channel. Because everything we do here is built on this exact purpose, giving you science-backed, practical, real-world information about how to live stronger, healthier, and more independently as you age. We are just getting started. In the videos ahead, we are going to go deeper into the specific meal combinations that maximize muscle recovery, the timing strategies that older adults can use to get more from the protein they eat, the lifestyle factors that work alongside nutrition to reverse the decline most people simply accept, and so much more. Every episode is another tool in your hands. Every video is another step toward the version of yourself you know is still possible. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and come back, because this conversation is far from over, and your strongest years may still be ahead of you.